Here's an interview from one of our past shows on Rock and Metal Revival. If you're interested in hearing full shows, go to our Facebook page and check out our list of affiliates for times and places where you can hear Rock and Metal Revival. There is Natural Thing from Strangers in the Night from UFO. Dude, I haven't heard that song in forever.
Yeah, you don't get enough UFO on the radio.
You really don't. And I tell you what, it's... Speaking of UFO, the guy that really made me listen to UFO is joining us today on the show.
Michael Schenker?
No, close.
No?
But,
Phil Mogg?
No.
No?
I want to welcome our friend Eddie Trunk back to Rock and Metal Revival.
Oh, yeah.
Welcome to the show, Eddie.
Hey, guys, how are you?
It's good to have you back on the show, and like I said, I was never a real big UFO fan until I got your book. And then all of a sudden I started digging through some of the tunes. What a great band. And you don't hear enough of them on the radio anymore.
Yeah, they're kind of like certainly always fell into that cult band sort of category, and never really had a bona fide huge hit single in America, but obviously so influential, and maybe more so than any other band over the decades that I've talked about on the radio or whatever. I hear from people who tell me that I turned them on to that band, and even as recently as now in the last few years, and the band's been around almost 50 years, so. It's cool. I mean, that's what I got into doing this for so many years ago, is to turn people on to other music, just the music I liked, whether it be new or old stuff. And UFO is something that I've heard so much from people who have said, "Hey, thanks for tipping me off to that, because it really is great." And for whatever reason, in some ways, it flew under the radar.
You know, Eddie, it's been quite a while since we had you on the show, and you've been doing so many different things. And on Sunday night, I'm sitting home, I'm watching AXSTV, and I catch the latest episode of Trunkfest. Tell me how that got started. What a great show.
And a great idea.
Yeah, thanks. The new season just premiered this past Sunday, and there's new episodes every Sunday night, 9:30 Eastern, 8:30 Central. And it's been a lot of fun. I can't take any credit for the idea. That came completely from the network. For people that get Access TV, they're really, really into the channel, and there's a ton of great music programming on it. Sammy Hagar has a show on it. They just announced that Brian Johnson's TV show that aired in Europe is going to air on it. They've got a bunch of concerts and countdown shows, and then there's other stuff like wrestling and things like that. But also, Dan Rather does an interview show on there. So there's a ton of really cool and kind of eclectic content. And I had watched the channel. The cable provider I switched to had the channel, and I watched it, and I really liked it. And I had done some stuff for Access TV in the past. I hosted a documentary film series for them, and I hosted a couple red carpet things for them. And I know some of the people there, and we had gone back and forth about doing something on a consistent basis for a long time. And we were trying to figure out what it would be. And when that metal show went off, and the network went off the air, I really started to pitch the idea of them picking up the show. And they were interested in it at one point, but they have budgets and they have restrictions, and they also, their interest was if they were going to do that metal show and also having the catalog, having the old shows to play. And VH1 was not willing to sell or license the old shows to them. So that kind of killed that whole idea. So then they came to me and said, "Hey, how would you feel about doing this music festival show?" They said, there's more music festivals than ever, and we'd like to cover the experience on what goes on at the festivals. Not necessarily, just about the bands, but about the experience, the food, the attractions beyond just the music, and the locations. And it's more of a travel show. And I said, yeah, it takes me out of my comfort zone. It does something. It's a little different for me. It's putting me at festivals and music that I'd never normally be at, but that's cool. Even if it's not my kind of music, it still covers the experience of what goes on, and I see how these different things operate. So we shot a season of 8 episodes about a year and a half ago, and that aired, and it did well enough for them to want to do more. And the second season, like I said, premiered Sunday. The second episode of the second season is this Sunday. It's from the Monsters of Rock cruise, and in it, Don and Jim from my TV show make an appearance, and I talk to Extreme, and I talk to, who else?
Tesla, I think.
Tesla, yeah. and could really just cover what goes on that ship. So every one of them is about a different experience, a different thing. Some of it is in my wheelhouse, like the Monsters Cruise, which is hard rock, and others are, I've done a country one, I've done an EDM one. And those are obviously about that scene and what goes on at these festivals and what the settings are. So it's been great. It's been great to do. It's been a lot of fun. People who have seen it, it's not that metal show. Well, no, it's not. It's a completely different show, and I miss that metal show too, and I'd love to do it again if there's an opportunity. But this was, timing was great for this. It's a great crew, great people that I work with, and it's a lot of work to do them. It really is. I mean, we travel into some crazy locations and get in and out pretty quick. We try to get in and out in a day or two. And it can be pretty grueling. I mean, if people have seen the show, there's no hair, there's no makeup, there's no cosmetic. I mean, I look pretty rough in a lot of those shots. And I just deal with that. People said to me, like, even my producers, like, hey, do you want a makeup artist or do you want this? I was like, no, you know what? I mean, look, I'm not kidding myself. I was never Brad Pitt. I know who I am. I mean, I'm out there doing it for real, and this is what it's really like. And if it's hot and sweaty and wet and damp and cold, I mean, I did one in Vail, Colorado, freezing my ass off. Whatever it is, let's just go do it and keep it real and have fun with it. And if the second season goes well, we'll see where it goes from there. But second season's on the air now, and the first one was from Sammy Hagar's beach party last year.
That was cool.
Yeah, and that one was, to be honest with you, that one was a little rough for me. Behind the scenes, nobody knows this, but it was. If you watch that show, the current episode, there's the first 10 minutes or so. There's a long stretch where I'm not in the show. You don't physically see me, and there's a reason for that, which nobody would really ever know. But I had a huge travel issue getting there that day. I was coming from Oklahoma on the day of the shoot, which I never do, but I had a pre-existing thing I had to do there. And a friend of mine in Oklahoma was nice enough and he obviously has some money and he's a generous guy. He rented a private jet to fly me in time to go from Tulsa to Huntington Beach. And he, of course, came with me, and he wanted to come, and that was part of the deal. And the jet, as we were about to take off, had some sort of mechanical issue, and they grounded the jet. Oh. So I was stuck in Tulsa hours before having to shoot in California with no way of getting to California beyond commercial flights, which were all connecting. Yikes. So I was completely freaking out, and I somehow managed to get the last connecting flight. Point being, I got to that shoot way, way late. I never go in day of shoots because of stuff like that, but I made an exception, and it burned me, and it almost cost the show. So I was really frazzled at that, and I missed the window of covering some of the stuff with the cars and that's in that show early on. But then I got there in time to talk to the artists and do a few other bits. But when I watch that one, it's fine, but all it does for me is bring up the stress of that day trying to get there, which was crazy.
Oh, so yeah, there's a lot of those festivals that I look at and I'm like, oh, I wouldn't want to go to that. But you had to go to these, so were there any that you were dreading and then ended up being really cool?
Yeah, well, I mean, they're all dreading would probably be a little strong. Yeah. I mean, because really, it'd be kind of ridiculous to sit there and say you're dreading being paid to be flown to a music event and spend a weekend. That's something obviously true. People pay a lot of money to do. But you're right. Some of the settings and some of the music is certainly something I wouldn't be at if I wasn't working. I shot one in this season called Hangout Festival, which was in Gulf Shores, Alabama. Never been to Alabama. It was on the beach. It was so hot, and it was it was very, very young audience. It was like late teens, early 20s, and it was pop music and some EDM or whatever. And if I'm being honest, I mean, it was a beautiful setting and everything, but I was good getting that one done and getting out of there. We got done what we had to do. So there's others, and then there's others you go to that I'd never heard of that I wanted to. It was kind of like, I'm going to get right out of here and take a red eye out. And then when I did it, I totally regretted it because I wish it was such a cool setting and place that I would have loved to hang out some. There was a episode in the first season that we did at one in San Diego called Kaboo, and it was amazingly well run, and it was beautiful and incredible food, and just the weather was amazing. And I ran out of there after I was done, and I was like, man, I would have loved to stay here for a couple days. I did one in Mexico at a resort. I had no idea it was an all-inclusive, all-paid resort, and they had put me in for 7 days, all-inclusively paid,
wow.
And I left 2 days later. They thought I was crazy when I was leaving. I had to sign all these waivers like there was something wrong that I was leaving, and I was like, no, I just thought this was going to suck and booked my flight to leave. So I basically walked out on 5 days of what would have been fully paid vacation. So you just never fully know, but the idea is to get in, get the job done, get the shots, get the segments they need, and get out. And this weekend, I mean, in a couple hours, I'm doing the last episode for this season. I'm flying to Ohio tonight, and I shoot at a jail, on the site of a jail. It's called Incarceration, and it's a metal festival, and it's this weekend. So that'll be the final episode of this season.
You know, Eddie, I really enjoyed your Essential Hard Rock and Heavy Metal 1 and 2. And are there any thoughts of you actually doing an autobiography and telling some of the stories with some of the great artists that you've worked with over the years?
Well, yeah, and I started it, and I hit the halfway point of it, kind of, and completely stalled. And I didn't stall for a lack of wanting to do it. I just stalled on it because of a lack of time and discipline. You know, when I did those two previous books, I had deals in place for them. So I had a publisher and I had an editor who was giving me deadlines every week and saying, you've got to get this in by this point, and it forced me to work on it. The approach I'm taking to an autobiography is to just get it all done first and then decide who's going to put it out and shop it as a finished book. And because of that, it's allowing me to leave it alone and not be disciplined to finish it. And because my schedule has been so crazy with 6 live satellite radio shows a day, a podcast a week, an FM show a week, and then running around shooting these access shows and picking up appearances and hosting gigs, it's just been, I'm blessed and lucky I have all this going on, but finishing the book is definitely taking a back seat. And one of the places that I would normally work on the book is on planes, which I'm on constantly. But more and more, when I get on a plane and I'm able to turn my phone off and have a few hours apiece, the last thing I want to do is turn on a computer. I just want to read a book or just watch TV and just, disconnect. So it really is on my shoulders to finish. Last year was my 35th year in the business. I was hoping to get it out for that. Obviously, I missed that. But it's about half done on my computer, and as soon as I can really focus on it, I absolutely want to finish it off. And I'll tell you this real quick. My first book, I'm completely blown away by this because I get statements, did over 38,000 physical copies sold, which is incredible. And it's a lot more than most bands' records sell.
Yeah.
And that doesn't count the digital versions of it. But I was really bummed out to find out, like somebody went on eBay and showed me that the new copies of the book were selling for like $400. I'm like, why would that be? And then it turned out that the publisher discontinued it, that it had, it's been out for a while and they just took it out and they just aren't producing it anymore. So I called my publisher. I said, hey, what's going on? Why would you do this? I'm still have these outlets that I can promote it. And they said, well, it's just something we do with books after they've been out for a while. So that led to a conversation about doing a revised version and an updated redo of the first book in a hardcover with new content. And they've said, yeah, they want to do that. So the good news is probably next year we're shooting for sort of almost a remastered, revised edition of the first book that will hopefully come out sometime next year and then get it back out there in the pipeline again.
So you're saying my 2 signed copies are worth $400 a piece, huh? Is that what you're saying?
If they're new, I had somebody order one because I was selling signed copies on my website, and I had somebody order one, and I didn't have any, and then I called the publisher to order like 10 to send to me, and they couldn't fill the order, and that's how I found out about it. So,
Oh.
yeah, there's that first one is probably going to become somewhat collectible.
Nice.
It isn't already.
That's awesome. You know, Eddie, you were talking about all your satellite shows that you do, and all your. I know